Good evening, everyone, and welcome back. I'm Mike Dutra, and this is our Blackstone Valley. I'm very fortunate to be sitting with the gubernatorial candidate for the state of Rhode Island, Giovanni Feroce. Before we come to him, I'd like to give you a quick commercial and an opportunity to learn more about him. This is the 30-second spot now.
Rhode Island has it. But somewhere along the way, we lost knowing it. Giovanni Feroce never forgot. He has a vision for our future.
Welcome back, everyone. Sitting with me now is Giovanni Feroce. Giovanni, why did you want to run for governor?
Well, I thought ultimately for me the decision was pretty easy. We need a vision. We need a vision for Rhode Island. The United States has to be on a vision, has to feed an objective. So in Rhode Island, we've been through tumultuous times. In the recent years, very tumultuous. Frankly, there's a lack of leadership at all levels, but especially at the gubernatorial level. There is clearly no training. So for me, I looked at what the opportunities were to provide Rhode Island with that training, to make sure that decisions are made in a professional manner, employ a lot of my leadership training, be it in the military, where primarily I received it and been part of the processes, understanding high-level decisions. The United States Central Command, where I served, was part of that team. To also, later on in life, going through the advanced management program at the Wharton School of Business and understanding how, in fact, I should be making decisions and applying those so that at no point in time would you ever have a single point of failure, would you ever have, a kind of deer in headlights feel, but rather know automatically that if something happened that were to not be good for the state of Rhode Island, that immediately your second and third course of action would be employed, and we would be fine. So for me, it's about leadership. My infantry ring says "Follow me." That is one of my taglines, and I want the people of Rhode Island to really follow me because I have that background. I'm an Italian immigrant who grew up in West Warwick, Rhode Island, graduated from public schools, went to the University of Rhode Island, did the simultaneous membership program, went into the Army Reserve, enlisted, became an officer through ROTC at URI, went into business with my brother. We had a small business, Feroce Optical. It still exists in Rhode Island today. We sold it, but through that process, opened other optical opportunities. And then we all have been part of one of the biggest tragedies in the history of our country, which is 9/11. And post 9/11 is when I saw most of my Army days. So in a joint environment with Marines, Air Force, Army, Navy, Coast Guard, we took on counterterrorism efforts and provided the safety that was required for our country. And coming out of that, I was able to go back into the optical world, focus on a software, which I ultimately developed, and then met someone who had founded a company called Alex and Donnie. Met Carolyn Rafalian in 2009, joined her in 2010, and for the next 4 years, we built a $1 billion plus company in valuation and certainly revenue along the lines to justify that. So I've been part of really large efforts, and the state of Rhode Island needs very large thinking, but more importantly, it needs decision makers. I require situational reports. I use significant events to guide me. I make sure people understand what commanders' critical information requirements are. All of the things that the state of Rhode Island has gone through traumatically in the last 3-4 years that seem to be, days when we wake up and we don't know how it is that we got hit or what we got hit with, they would not be part of my administration. I would actually know ahead of time make sure we don't go through that. And if in fact we did go through something traumatic, I'd have an answer immediately to address that and move on. But we would be moving forward in executing a vision for Rhode Island. With that said, what is that vision? And the vision is, in fact, one that creates a path of opportunity for all the citizens of Rhode Island. And I believe you should be on one of three paths: a path of education, a path of employment, or a path of retirement. And we need to take care of our youngest of the population, those with also developmental disabilities, and also the oldest part of our population, and understand their needs and take care of them with the resources of the state. But, I am a Republican, and we'll talk about that here, Michael, and the fact is, I am about reducing spending. I am about transformation. I'm about blockchain technology. We'll be talking about that and its effects and what and how it will give me the ability to do the previous two things. So that's where I am with my run for governor.
Outstanding. Thank you so much, Giovanni. All that being said, I am a Democrat, and Giovanni's most certainly a Republican. There are quite a few things we disagree about. One thing I can tell you we don't disagree about is we need new ideas and real leadership. Being born and bred in Rhode Island, I can tell you the state I grew up in, it looked very different when I was younger than it does now. And I think a lot of that has to do with people not taking responsibilities for the jobs they take. We need to stop electing people who waited in line in Rhode Island. We need to remember that what made Providence turn around was people going for radical change. What made other parts of Rhode Island see big rejuvenation sometimes was painful. And these are things that are worth talking about. Even if we disagree on stuff like immigration or taxes, Giovanni and I agree on what's important, which is the people. We'll be right back.
Talk about the potholes and toll booths and all that, it's not me. If you want, blockchain technology, new industries, new ways of teaching people, plug into Boston, that's what'll happen. Yeah, you're gonna build houses. They should be literally in Concert Point. Built on a assembly line, no different than Detroit with cars. That's what's happening. Houses look like your iPhone. People have to understand where we are.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm Mike Dutra, and this is our Blackstone Valley. Very excited to be sitting here with Giovanni Feroce to talk with you about blockchain and other things that need to come to Rhode Island to make things better for everyone. Giovanni, tell me about how you think blockchain is going to make things better in Rhode Island.
Well, first, the technology itself. I want it to be where Rhode Island is, in fact, the blockchain hub of not only the United States, possibly the world. I have the benefit of having, studied and been part of, at least for a short period of time, the state of Delaware and understanding what they did to become the home of, corporations incorporating and, registering to do business. And why was that? Well, because they passed an act that allowed for, the benefits of registering your corporations in that state. I want to do the same in Rhode Island for blockchain. I want to make it friendly. I want to make it where the transactions don't get taxed, where they see a benefit to building blockchain companies, all the way up and down the actual technology. For those who don't follow it that much, I believe most of you have been introduced to it for the first time via the cryptocurrency aspects and a particular company called or currency called Bitcoin, I should say. The fact is, it's the underlying technology that's going to transform everything. So whereas the internet age that we are now part of has seen the disruption of brick and mortar stores and the creation of behemoths such as, you know, the Googles of the world and the Amazons of the world and the Facebooks of the world. All of those were based on, you know, centralizing data. And so the real value in those companies is that they control the data, and therefore they control us. And so what we need to understand now is there's a new opportunity, a new way, and that's a decentralized way. So all of that information being decentralized will ultimately cut out the middleman. So those transactions will be able to take place between parties who otherwise might not trust one another, but now can trust it because the decentralized systems, the blockchain, will verify transactions. And you can literally almost move anything. But, you know, in the early goings, the things that I think the voters need to understand and where we can make immediate impacts are places like a DMV or the transfer of titles for homes and other land and other transaction, corporate, you know, documents. All of those things can, in fact, now be trusted and have a lot of value. So if information previously had to be verified some way, and you had to verify it in a centralized place, and a picture meant nothing, a picture of your license might not mean anything, a picture of a title to a car might not mean anything, now we can actually transfer that electronically, but now it'll mean something. It'll have value. And when all those ledgers say, in fact, that transaction happened, and I'm moving that property from point A to point B, it's going to disrupt everything. So blockchain technology for me is an easy one. The world is moving fast, but Rhode Island has a unique opportunity. Its location, its proximity in between New York and Boston allow for really a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. No other candidate's going to talk about it. I laughingly say, but I'm probably right, some candidates would probably think I'm talking about Blockbuster. They have no idea what I'm talking about. But trust me, we are at a point in time where people who've had my vast experience, my life experience that brought me, you know, from being a stock clerk in a supermarket to the highest floors of the biggest financial institutions in the world, conducting transactions and talking about economies and my and our company's contribution to those economies. My participation in the Joint Operations Center of United States Central Command in prosecuting, you know, major combat operations, understanding that decision-making process. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for Rhode Island to have a leader that in fact is meant for the times. And that leader's me. And so as I introduce myself and continue to meet people throughout Rhode Island, the biggest and most important thing they need to understand is that leadership is what you should be voting for in November. All of the other stuff, we can all talk about what's terrible and what needs to be changed. And some people will talk about small changes. I don't believe in those. I don't believe in incremental changes. I believe in big change. To, in fact, have that big change, those big structural changes take place, you need leadership. And I don't believe I have an equal when it comes to that. And so I've put myself forward to you. I not only, you know, ask you for your vote and for your confidence, I implore you. And I'll tell you why. I have 5 children, and I still have 3 that are school age that need a state that they in fact can not only get educated in, but get employed in, can live in. And you know, I have a new commercial that's out on social media, and it's called Mama, or my mother. And you know, she talks about how she was forced to leave the state of Rhode Island and move to Florida because she could not afford taxes. And we're there again, you know, we're at a point where people are leaving and leaving and leaving. And I don't want to lose my family and friends, and I know you all don't either. So thank you very much for considering me this year. And I want to thank Michael for having me on this show, because I know its reach is in fact, throughout the Blackstone Valley and goes into your friends and network in Rhode Island. But let's face it, this part of Massachusetts as well also, works, and many people live and work amongst Rhode Island and Massachusetts in this area. And so it's important for us to have that reach and that level of communication. I always talk about this invisible border we kind of, discuss, and we shouldn't. We should look at things regionally. We should look at, Rhode Island plugging into Massachusetts, understanding Boston can be a Manhattan, understanding Rhode Island can be treated like New Jersey or Connecticut or Long Island. And how do we plug and play in that world? So thank you for having me, Michael. And
The pleasure's all mine, Gio. And if very quickly I could just close out with this. I was born in Providence. I grew up in Mount Pleasant. My wife and I were fortunate enough to live in Barrington for some time on Rumstick Point. I moved out of Rhode Island because of the problems Rhode Island faces. I miss Rhode Island every day. To think about people having to deal with such archaic challenges because of the lack of ingenuity and answers in our state falls on no one but our current governor. And as a registered Democrat, I say that to you all now. Furthermore, knowing Mayor Fung very well, I can tell you he's a great man. But I've met a lot of great majors in my life I would never want to meet as generals. We need to understand we are at an important time in Rhode Island's history and elect accordingly. I'm Mike Dutra. This is our Blackstone Valley. Thank you so much for watching. Good night.